This may well be the dumbest question about the Teen Wolf movie.
It's really dumb.
How dumb is she?
It's so dumb that I always question the real motivation of the questioners. How did the Nematon Jar-O Trickster get to Japan? Y'all want the real answer? Okay. Federal Express International Air standard delivery because everyone in the pack is too poor to pay for same-day or overnight international. No one seriously wonders about this. What they really want to know is why we didn't see the handoff from Isaac to Liam and Hikari. You didn't see it because it wasn't necessary to tell the story they wanted to tell. As an audience, you either come into this not knowing the history of the jar, or you already know it used to be home to Talia's claws before becoming a prison for the Void Fly. Either way, by the time we get here...
This is a very special jar, actually. It was made from the wood of a sacred tree used to capture a dark kitsune.
You now know what's in the jar, and that's the only important thing about its presence in the movie. I know there's a sect of the fandom that really wanted to see or at least hear about Isaac. But come on, that would just be even more fan service in a movie that is already chock-a-block full of fan service. Where the jar has been and how many different members of Scott's pack acted as guardians of it over the past 15 years isn't at all important to this story. The Nogitsune did not possess Argent like it did Styles. People seem confused by this. Nogitsune is not possessing Chris Argent in the same way it possessed Styles in Season 3. The Void Styles way of possession, taking over a body completely, requires acquiescence from the host. Void could never get that from Chris. Void is merely puppeting Chris Argent the same way it puppeted William Barrow to get up off the operating table and go to school. It's the same way it puppeted the twins and Isaac and Derek to create confusion while it was preparing for its final moves. In the movie, Nogitsune is still just a disembodied spirit, so it can't directly control very much, but it can whisper, it can create hallucinations and change perceptions, and that's what it did to Chris to get him to do exactly what it wanted. Nogitsune needed all the pieces to the Nematon, so it planted this Allison is stuck narrative inside a still grieving father's head, and fed him with all sorts of details about a trapped spirit, a special sword, and a ticking clock.
There's a ritual of some kind. I know a few details. I got a feeling the real answers are in Beacon Hills. It has to be done by the next full moon. And if it's not, we don't get another chance.
All the while, Nogitsune is feeding on Chris's panic and the fresh grief from bringing up all these memories. Oh, and I've heard a lot of jokes about Deaton's mountain ash aromatherapy and why didn't they just use that on Styles? Hopefully you can see the difference now.
Hold still. Almost there. Isaac, you're next. Wait, all right?
In Season 3, a cold shower and a finger down the throat was required to get the puppet bugs out of the puppeted. The movie version with the mountain ash was both quicker and less gaggy. This video is going to be short because it's incredibly simple. There is one line in the new Teen Wolf movie that explains everything. Every theory you've seen on Twitter or Reddit, every question you have about Pontius Pilate light blowing up werewolf Jesus. Everything about everything we saw. One line spoken by our shadowy antagonist to Lydia.
This was no small accomplishment. This illusion has several layers. Here, Lydia, let me show you one.
That's it. They kept telling us throughout this movie that the Nogitsune creates amazingly realistic illusions. But that's all they are, illusions. Case in point, this gauntlet at the end of season 3.
It looks real and it feels real, but Scott, you gotta trust me, it's an illusion.
Now, this feels very real to everyone involved, but once they bust through the illusion, ta-da! 0 wounds and not even damage to their clothing. It's all illusion. A very painful illusion. The Nogitsune's physical body wasn't even physically there in that illusion garden. He was outside taunting Derek at the same time.
I've heard of an alpha pack, Derek, but not a pack of former alphas.
But inside, that Nogitsune was able to manipulate the environment, so it sure as hell felt like he was really there.
This was no small accomplishment. This illusion has several layers. Here, Lydia, let me show you one.
Again, it's an incredibly simple explanation. Devious in a way that only Jeff Davis can be, but still incredibly simple. Everything we saw, that Nematon wasn't the real Nematon because they were in the stadium, which is miles away from the Nematon. Those structures, they weren't actually there. The unbreakable bonds, not real. The endless Oni parade, it's all just one layer of the same illusion. This is one of the most talked about aspects of the Teen Wolf movie.
Do you remember, Scott, the gift that you gave me? The bite of the alpha.
Yeah, say hello to Nogitsune Wolf. Nightmare fuel for a new generation. All I hear about this is, but I thought a fox spirit can't be 2 things. That scroll said that. Yes. No, that's all. Yes, a fox spirit cannot be 2 things. It cannot be both wolf and fox. But he just said...
Power of the werewolf.
But that does not make the Nogitsune a werewolf, just like it is not a World War II soldier or Allison's mom or a housefly. Nogitsune can take on the appearance of whatever. I believe it keeps coming back to Poor Dead Reese because that was the first body it inhabited on this plane, and the costume looks cool. The housefly, later a firefly, is the smallest form it can take and stay tethered to the mortal world. But things like Victoria Argent and Nogitsune Wolf are just for effect. It's a trickster spirit. Almost everything you see it do is just an illusion. Now, if you are just desperate for an in-universe explanation, Scott did bite that physical body that Nogitsune made out of Styles that one time. Alpha bites transfer werewolf spark. The void spirit absorbed that spark, and the body blew up because that spark conflicts with the universal rules of the Nogitsune. But the energy, the spark, didn't disappear. It stayed part of the Nogitsune. Now, it cannot turn into a werewolf because it cannot be 2 things. But that extra energy is still there, and it can play with it. That little boost literally lit up its ass while it was sitting in the Nemeton jar and gave the big baddie a full blueprint for making a werewolf-shaped illusion body.